Hi, I'm Magaibo, and I'd like to welcome you to the first in a series of videos that I'm going to be doing detailing the basics, the beginner's guide to PvP in EVE Online. The first thing I'm going to look at today is the overview. Now, the overview is this part of the screen that tells you what is in the system with you, what is in front of you. You can click on the items and it brings up the selected item box here, which gives you various things that you can do with whatever you've selected. You can interact with it, you can look at it, you can bring up details about it, you can approach it if it's a Stargate, you can jump through it, or you can walk to it if it's a celestial body that allows that. The default overview is what we're looking at here. It's got 3 tabs: General, Mining, and Walk To. It's pretty useless. So what I'm going to do just now is create a new overview and walk you through the whole process. What I'm going to do is create a number of tabs that will cover different situations, and you will be able to click on that tab when that situation comes up and hopefully have everything that you need right in front of you. Now, to get into the overview settings, you go into this menu button here and click Open Overview Settings. And if you go to tab presets, you'll see that there are 2 tabs here. These tabs filter out what is going to show up in your overview here. The first tab is types, and it's simply that. It'll tell you what kind of item would show up in the window, and you can filter that out. So for example, you might want to filter out drones, you might want to have in structures. These are the different things you can filter in or out. What I always do for my first tab is simply select all, and I would save that at the top as all. If there's ever anything in particular that you're looking for, you know it's going to be in that first tab because everything's in that first tab. We've created a preset called all here, and we can load that preset to that tab just by going load preset to tab and selecting all, and it makes sense to change the label of that tab to all. So that's the types tab. The states tab allows you to further filter out certain things, and we'll be using that later on. Usually what you're filtering out by is a standing or a state of another pilot. So we'll move on to the second tab. It's down as mining. We're not going to be doing any mining. This is a PvP overview. So the second tab that I would have, I will call it normal. Now this would be normal navigation, not PvP, not fighting. Just when you want to know exactly what it is around you. And as a basis, what we can do is just put in all and then take out what we don't want. So I don't think for normal we need moons. We don't need custom officers unless you're using them. We'll leave in belts, because if you're looking for PvP, and I'm in low sec here, you'll get a lot of action in the belts. I'm going to take out the infrastructure as well. Let me change the name of what we're doing here to normal. And that way, when we load preset to tab, the changes that we had will be saved under normal. To get an idea of the sorts of things that would show up in an overview, it's a good idea to move yourself around to different places in the system to see what comes up. So if I warp to a Stargate just now, and we'll do it from 100 kilometers, you'll see things that show up around a gate that don't show up in other parts of the system. Now I'm in a ship that's cloaked at the moment because I don't have my PvP set up right at just now, and I don't want anyone surprising. But as I'm setting it up, I'll record it and you'll get yourself ready for PvP if you take these steps. So I've walked to a gate here, and you can see immediately there's things there near the gate. There are sentry guns. We don't need to know about those just now. There is a Concord billboard. You can remove that as well. And we start to see other things that are here. we see an Astrahus, structures, and I want them to stay there as well. I can see these beacons as well. These beacons are faction warfare plexes. You can get lots of fights there, so we'll leave them in the overview. And we'll leave the planets, and we'll leave the asteroid belts. Now the state that I've got, if I just update that by clicking save to normal, you can see a ship's just jumped in there. Now, that ship that's just jumped in has got no background colour, so I can't see immediately if that's a friend or a foe. Now that's obviously a problem if we're setting up PvP. Now this is the normal tab, it's got everything on it. But what I can do here is change the colour tags in the overview of different pilots based on their settings. This is going to be low-sec PvP, which means anybody who isn't in my corp, my alliance, or my fleet is a potential target or a potential danger. So there isn't really any advantage to differentiating somebody who's got a neutral standing or no standing. Because if you've not specifically said someone's got a particular standing, they'll show up as no standing. And that's not good, because they could be there to cause you trouble. So if it's got no standing, I'm going to change that to red. If they've specifically got a neutral standing, I'm going to leave that at grey. Everyone else is going to be red, unless if they've got a bad standing, I want that to be red. Terrible standing, red. Pilot is a suspect. Well, I'm still going to have that red. Pilot is a criminal, red. Pilot has a security status. I mean, these are all reds. Pilot is in your militia. Well, I don't do faction warfare, so I can take that out. Pilot has a good standing or an excellent standing. I'm just going to simply leave them as blue. Same for alliance. Pilot is in your I'm not in a Capsulia Corp, so I can take that out. Pilot is in your fleet, traditionally purple. Pilot has a limited engagement with you. I'll leave that as red. Pilot is at war. Well, I'm in a corp or an alliance that can't have wars, so I'm going to take out the war references there. The background shows up here, so it's quite clear from the outset what it is. It should just show up as a big red background. Sometimes if you change the settings, it can take a little while to update. The color tag is a little tag that would appear in the corner. It's quite small. Unless there's something specifically you want to do, I would just leave it the way that it is. What you can do with these color tags and backgrounds is apply them to other structures and other objects in space. And I'm quite happy to do that. So as I do that, you can see that the structures which are friendly to me become blue. They've got a blue background. So we'll go back to the tab presets. Now, all the changes I've made there aren't restricted to a particular tab, so I don't need to click save again. They apply to all of the tabs. So I'm going to move on to create my next tab, which I'm going to call, I'll just load the last tab we created to it, but I'm going to rename it No Blue. Now the reason for that is if you're fighting, you don't want any friendly pilots on your overview that you could accidentally target or kill. Now the exceptions to this, now if we just see there, that industrial ship just jumped in, and because they've not got standings with me, it's an Eve Uni pilot, they're going to show up as red. The exception, when you do want people in your fleet or in your corp, your blues, or purples to show up on your overview is if you're doing logistics, which means remote repping, remote boosting. If you've got some reason for targeting a friendly pilot, then you're not going to select a tab that says no blue. If I just save this as no blue, it means we can start to work on it, and I'll just assign no blue to that tab. Now this is for fighting, so we might want to remove some more things here actually, but let's just go in here first. I've gone into tab presets and states, and each of these items has got 3 states that can either be shown by default, filtered out, or always show. So I'm going to filter out all pilots with an excellent standing and a good standing, and also filter out pilots in your alliance. Now this should be filtered out anyway. And in your fleet, everyone else you want left in. If this is for fighting, the no blue one, you don't want all of this. That's an awful lot going on for when you're actually engaging with PvP. So I'm going to start to take out some other things here. Now there's 2 ways in which you can do it. You can unclick it from within the types tab of the tab presets within your overview settings, or you can right click it in the actual overview and select remove planet from overview, for example. Remove that item from the overview. Now the way I'm looking at this is normal is when I'm looking for the fight, and no blue is when I'm actually starting the fight. So my focus at this point is going to be actually getting the ship. So I don't need the gate. If I want to see the gate, I can just click onto the normal tab. I'm going to remove the beacons and the belts. I'm going to remove the sun. I'm going to remove the stations. And I'm going to remove the citadels and the refineries and the engineering complex. Now, that looks like you removed everything, but you haven't. And this is what I meant by you have to move around the system to see the different things. So if I walk to an asteroid belt at 100, and you'll get fights in asteroid belts. Maybe you want to kill miners. Maybe there's someone else there waiting for a fight. Belts are great for this. But there's a downside to belts. And I'm warping to this belt at 100 kilometers. And we'll see what comes up on the overview. Asteroids. They've absolutely filled the overview there. So you could right click on every different asteroid type there. Now if I right click on just asteroids and put deselect all, it gets rid of all of the asteroids. That's perfect. And you can see on the overview there they've all gone. You've got celestials here. Some of these things are within mission sites. For example, a large collidable object. A mission site is something that you might want to go into when you're setting up your overview, just to make sure it's not full of things that you don't want. For example, I'm going to take out large collidable object. I'm going to take out disrupted gate, construction platform. I'm going to leave cargo container because they sometimes have nice things in them. Agents in space, and just a couple of other things that aren't going to help me when I'm doing PvP. And I'll just go through the rest. Scanner probes. Now, scanner probes are things you should be aware of in the system, but that isn't something for the overview. That's something for when you scan the system, which is going to be in it's going to be in our 3rd lesson coming up. Deployables. If you're going to 00 nullsec, you're going to want to leave these deployables all ticked things like mobile warp disruptors, bubbles that stop you warping. You want to know that they're there. Drones I'm taking off, and I'll show you why in a moment. Now, I'm going to leave the mission ships in, because if I'm going into a mission site for to fight someone that's maybe running that site, then the ships that are in there can potentially attack me, so I do want to know about them. Fighters. I'm going to remove those, and again, it's the same as the drones. I'll show you why in a little moment. NPCs, I don't need them on this overview. I'm not going to be fighting them, that would be very silly. Orbitals, get rid of that. Ships, I want every ship ticked. Sovereignty structures, I don't need them on this overview. Starbase, now I'm gonna deselect Celestials now, because Starbase is the POS stuff that I was referring to earlier, and they can hurt you, so it's best to know that they're there. Station were removed, and the structures, well, this is low sec, so I'm quite happy to remove them, and I'll just save that as no blue, and I'll just make sure I've got no blue loaded into there. Now's the time to talk about brackets. Ships in space, you can actually see them if they're rendering in 3D, but you can also have brackets. So the brackets represent what's actually in space, or some of it. Like, for example, there's a structure, there's the gate, there's the billboard, and these little things that show here are the brackets. Now the problem is that if you've got lots and lots of things on screen all at once, these brackets can be a problem. They can slow down your client, so you don't want brackets that you don't need. So what can be useful is to load a preset to your brackets as well. So if under my no blue tab, if I change load preset to brackets and put in my no blue ones, then you'll see that it removed there. So anything that, I had that selected, so that stays there, but if I just click on my ship, you'll see that the brackets have gone. I don't mind having the brackets, so I'm going to put the things that I've got in the normal tab as the brackets there for no blue. So if I just click on normal, then the bracket comes back for the gate. I think a bracket on a gate is a handy thing to have. This is more something of a problem when you're in a very large fleet and every ship is a bracket and every drone is a bracket, and if you don't control it, it can become a problem for your client having to update all those brackets, all of the movements, what's been destroyed, what hasn't, all the time. It can slow things down. Something to be aware of. The next tab is very similar to no blue. We've overridden the 3 tabs are there. To create another tab, you hit the little plus button here. And I'm going to call this one no blue plus drones. Oh, or just drone because of the limit. So I'm going to load my no blue preset to tab, and then click on open overview settings again, and just add drones and add fighters. And then I'm going to save that as no blue plus drone. And load that preset to that tab. So the advantage of that is, if you are fighting lots of ships and there's loads of drones there, that can fill up your overview, and there might be times when you want the drones there might be times when you don't. So that just gives you a quick tab to get rid of the drones. If you're fighting someone and they've got drones, you want to show the drones, you want to see them. Now, the next tab is absolutely integral for any pilot that's got implants. I'm going to call it escape. Now, there may come a time in a fight when it becomes absolutely clear that you're going to die. If you've got implants in and you want to save them, you'll switch to this tab, which is escape. And the point of this is it will give you clear celestials in space that you can just keep hammering warp to, and hopefully as soon as your ship's destroyed, you'll be able to warp your pod out of there before your enemy can get a lock on your pod. So if I open the overview settings, and we'll call this one escape, deselect everything apart from, you want gates, so you want Stargate selected, you want stations selected. Probably a good idea to have planet selected as well, and why not structures as well. So if you're dying, you can select any one of these and just hammer on warp, and then you will take off as soon as your ship blows up. We'll just save that as escape. Make sure that we've got escape loaded there. There's a final one that I like to have as well, and I call it just ships, and we'll see why that comes in handy when we do an episode about the scanner. Because when you're scanning in space, you can filter out there, and you filter out by the same settings here, the overview settings, and it's very handy to have one that's just ships. So if I again go into overview settings, and we'll create a preset called just ships, and we'll deselect everything apart from ships and select them. There's one thing I'm going to add to this that isn't a ship, and that is a probe. It's called a scanner probe. If you're in space, you want to know whether or not someone else is trying to scan you down. So it's good to have the probes, the knowledge of the probes when you're scanning, but we'll cover that when we cover scanning. This is just creating an overview preset with that in. So I'll load the preset to tab of just ships. And when I open the overview settings, we also want to go into states. Just ships as a default, because I've created a new preset, has got everything showing. It doesn't unfilter out anything. But what will happen is if a friendly ship is there, it will show up as blue. Just want to check my no blue in drones, and that's still no blue, so that's fine. Okay. You can export and import overview settings, so you can save them locally. What you can also do is share them, and I'd like to show you how I can share this overview setting with you so you can use it. In game, if you click on mail, there is a facility for mailing lists, and if you go to add mailing list and type in Magaibo stuff and then click join, you'll join the Magaibo mailing list, and you'll get an automatic email which will give you this overview as a link that you can click on, and then it will populate your overview with all the settings that I've just put in here. I will call it version 1. If I'm making tweaks to it throughout, then I will just update the link and we'll call it version 1.1, 1.2, whatever, so you can see that this changes and you can match it up with the version if I'm changing it in future videos. So that's PvP lesson 1 done, about the overview. If you've got any questions, please post them in the comments. Thanks for watching, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you again next time.